Hello, today I am going to be making two cards using the pieces that I foiled in my last video. Here you can see the ones that I made, and I'm going to be using the silver pieces today to make two cards. And I wanted to use this waffle flower set. It has the stamps, the stencil, and the dies. So I'm going to be die cutting using the matching leaves. So I'm going to put it into my die cut machine, and you just line the die up with that foiled image and run it through, and it'll cut it right out. And this piece here, the foiling was pretty messed up, but the center one there was good enough for me to use on a card. And the black one uses the same foil. That one didn't come out too bad, but again, I wanted to use that die image there. So after cutting those two out, I wanted two silver pieces. So I took this paper stack here of metallic cardstock, and I die cut two of those leaves out of that silver metallic just to match the card fronts. It die cuts really well. So for the sentiment, that is again the matching set from Waffle Flower. I wanted to use the Thinking of You, and I'm just using the scrap pieces from where I trimmed those backgrounds down. So I put it on a larger piece of paper, cardstock. So I'm just putting it into my stamping tool there, using that little grip mat that I found at the Dollar Tree. I have a couple other ones for some of my other stamping tools, but this one works good in this one because it's a lot smaller. So I'm getting my stamp little prep there because I haven't used that stamp before. So I wanted to heat emboss this image in silver. So I wanted it white cardstock with a silver embossed sentiment. Since the sentiments that I tried to use in my glimmer machine didn't really come out all that well, I decided to use heat embossing. I was having a very difficult time trying to get these images to emboss well. I was having trouble getting the ink to stick to this paper. I believe it's the Nina Classic Crest. It's heavyweight cardstock, but I was just having a difficult time. So this is my first attempt there, and I forgot to use my anti-static powder tool. So I had to get a little bit of that embossing off of the areas I didn't want it. So the first attempt, I heated it up from the back side. You can do it from the back or the front. It really doesn't matter. But I got my heat tool way too close to the paper, and it melted some of that embossing right off. So this is my second attempt, and I thought I'd use that Ranger Perfect Medium super sticky ink. This came with my Perfect Pearls kit. It works really well for the Perfect Pearls, but wasn't sticking to my paper again. So tried to ink it up again and again, and I ended up using the Versamark ink again. Now, I may need to re-ink that Versamark pad. I didn't think it needed it, but I just could not get the stuff to stick to my paper. I keep inking it and looking at it, inking it and looking at it. So yeah, there's the Versamark. So I tried that again. I don't know what the problem was. I ended up using a different piece of paper. But I just wanted to show you the process of what I went through to get these sentiments. I think I ended up doing making 4 different ones. And again, this time I heat set it from the top side of it. And that seemed to work well. You can kind of see how far away you are from the paper. You can get it a lot better control, I think. So that one's not too bad. I still was not happy with it. So that's when I decided to use a different cardstock. I went with the Stampin' Up's Whisper White. It's a very thin paper, but it is ultra smooth. It is the smoothest paper I own. So I always have good luck with that paper when I heat emboss. So that's why I ended up using that one. And again, same silver embossing powder. I believe this company is called D's. I've had that embossing powder a really long time. I bought it online, I think from eBay, years and years ago. So I'm going to use the same piece of cardstock. I'm just going to turn it around and put it back into my stamping tool and ink it again. I was going to use black, and I decided, no, I want a silver sentiment. I was going to ink it with black and then clear emboss on top, and just decided to use silver. So again, checking, make sure I have enough ink on there. I had to ink this stamp like at least 3 times to get it on the, it was just not a very good embossing day. But I got them eventually. And again, use my heat tool, heat that up. And these two came out looking really nice. So those are the 2 pieces that I used. And once it was cooled off a bit, I put it into my little paper trimmer. Trim them right off. I wasn't sure where I was going to put them on the card, but I knew I wanted them a little thinner. So now I'm ready to put my background pieces onto my card fronts. These are 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch trimmed pieces onto the A2 card, and I use Tombow liquid adhesive to attach those to the front. Those card bases are Neenah Classic Crest, 110 pound. They're that cardstock's a nice sturdy weight for cards. It makes them stand up really well. And same with the second one. Same glue, liquid glue, adhere that to the front. I probably go overboard a little bit with the glue, but I always want to make sure they stick. As long as you don't get it oozing out the sides, it's fine. I just make sure the edges have enough glue on them. I don't want them peeling up. The liquid glue is nice because you can slide it around a little bit if you don't get it quite even the first time around. So once those are attached, then I take my die cut pieces and rearrange them and see exactly where I want to place them, how I want to place them, whatever looks good to you. Nest them together, put them on top of each other, whatever you decide. So those two I kind of nested together and glued them down as one whole piece. I did have to lift a couple of those little leaves up and get them adhered, because that foiled background's pretty slippery. So I gotta put a little bit more glue down on it. Now that piece I'm working on there did not foil well at all. As if you watch my last video, you can see it didn't adhere very well, so I wasn't sure if I was going to ink over it, cover up the parts that didn't have a whole lot of foil on it, but I ended up leaving the way it is. It gives a distressed look to it, so I thought that was fine. Now this background, this one came out really well. I didn't have any missing parts on that one at all. So this one I just decided to glue them down separately. So just one over on top of each other. And I have my little paperweight there to hold those down. I did not put any other layers on these. These are just a single layer die cut. So they're not too thick, not bulky at all. So then I decide where I want the sentiment, top, middle, bottom. I think I was going to put them in the middle, so I decided I wanted them a little thinner. So I just put them back into my paper trimmer, lined it up with a grid that's on there. Wasn't too difficult. They weren't too thin where they were a little wonky in there. So I trimmed those down and left the width so I could, when I glue it down there, I can adjust, center it basically. And then once that glue is pretty set on there, I can just trim that off with my scissors. So you just line it up where you want it, center it, make sure it's straight, and I will again put the paperweight on it just to make sure it all sticks together. And this one's the same thing. I decided to trim that one down as well. I didn't want to cover up too much of the leaves with the sentiment. I was fine with covering the background up with the leaves because there's enough of it showing to where it didn't cover it up a whole lot. So same thing, take my adhesive and center it up on the front. I made them pretty much the same, just different backgrounds. And now you can just take your scissors and trim that off. If you don't want to do that, you can cut them down to 4 1/4 of an inch. That way you don't have to trim. I don't have a problem trimming those off. So once I trimmed those all down, I was happy with the way they came out. And as you see, I got a little bit of glue on the back, so I took my adhesive remover. It's like a kind of an eraser type thing. That works really great for getting glue off of where you may not have wanted it. So here are my 2 finished cards. Happy with them. My next video, I will use the gold sun pieces. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.